this is my daughter, Brianna, and you're 6 years old now?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and a few years ago, when you were 16 months, we found out that you had cancer, and we had to take you to the hospital. Do you remember that?
No.
That's good. She had a germ cell tumor. It was a stage 4, and it had gone into her lungs. They said, well, we can give her this chemotherapy. So that evening they gave her the chemotherapy. We noticed right away that the tumor was shrinking. So we were probably in the hospital 80 days. It wasn't easy. And I'm glad she doesn't remember a lot of it. But now we don't have to go back for anything. We're done.
Thanks to advances in research, more and more people survive cancer. The American Cancer Society launched its research grants program in 1946. Since then, more than $3.4 billion has been invested in research, with rich dividends. Society-funded investigators have contributed to most of the major advances in cancer research.
The research program is one type of activity the American Cancer Society does to help it accomplish its ultimate mission, which is to eliminate cancer as a major health problem. The Cancer Society funding fits in a very, very important space within the research spectrum. And most of our funding for our research grants goes to scientists, to researchers who are at very early stages of their careers.
Getting funded early on in a fellowship or as a young faculty member is important, not only to support your salary for the time you're spending doing research, but also to fund the project itself. A lot of remarkable things happen because one individual decides that he or she is going to solve a problem and comes up with something that is going to help us break through to a new level of care, a new level of therapy.
What I wanted to do was to work on viruses that cause cancer in people. In 1973, there was no compelling evidence that Epstein-Barr virus causes cancers. We now know that Epstein-Barr virus causes 6 different kinds of cancers in people. We've also discovered other human tumor viruses. These tumor viruses cause more than 1 million cancer deaths a year, so what we're trying now to do are develop practical means to inhibit the virus from being maintained in the tumor cell so the tumor cell will die.
Unlike most other funding organizations, the American Cancer Society supports scientists who are just beginning their careers. Allowing young investigators to test novel ideas has led to breakthroughs and new treatments.
There was a doctor in Indiana studying this chemotherapy regimen for germ cell tumors. Before he figured his chemotherapy regimen out, 95% of the people who got this form of cancer died. Today, over 90% of the people live. The American Cancer Society gave him the money to figure that out.
It's not cheap to do research. It takes money for the supplies, the equipment that we need, the personnel. Research is labor intensive. It takes people working at benches, doing the work and actually generating the data. It goes to pay the postdoctoral fellows, who are actually the future leaders in the field. As technology has evolved, it's become much more expensive. And funding is critical to the advancement of research.
You know, when you finished all your medical school and, 3 years of internal medicine, 4 years of hematology oncology, and maybe you've spent an extra year in the lab, the draw to private practice, to pay back your loans, to do that is huge. If we in research want to keep bringing some people through this pipeline, if people want research, it's going to have to come from donors.
The nation's largest private not-for-profit source of funds for scientists investigating cancer, the American Cancer Society has funded more than 30,000 grants to more than 20,000 scientists at more than 900 academic institutions, with phenomenal results. 42 investigators who had received American Cancer Society funding went on to win science's highest accolade, the Nobel Prize.
What makes the program so strong is that all the awards are made based on this nationwide competition, so that we'll be funding the best, the brightest young minds.
Research awards are made at the national level. Investigators in the Midwest Division typically have active grants in effect that total between $5 and $10 million. Peer review committees meet twice a year to assess grant proposals for American Cancer Society Young Investigator Awards. The reviewers identify and recommend for funding only the most novel and innovative projects. The Society also makes institutional research grants to provide support at the local level for small pilot studies.
So the American Cancer Society seed grants come from a block of funding that we get as a cancer center. We then review applications, and then we select the very best ideas, studies that fly in the face of dogma. Those are some of the most exciting things we see. Well, when I started my research career, I was working in the field of anti-cancer monoclonal antibodies. Most of the experts in the field said they would never work, that I was throwing my career away. But I was able to get a seed grant and continue to work in the same field today. As most folks know, currently antibodies such as Herceptin and rituximab are commonly used to treat cancer.
Typically, about 24% of research proposals submitted to the American Cancer Society are approved for funding. Unfortunately, more projects are approved for funding than the budget can support. There are outstanding research proposals that cannot be funded unless a donor is found.
And we call those pay if additional funds become available. If somebody has a brilliant idea and that idea doesn't get funded, that idea may be lost. And when other young graduate students or young physicians see how difficult it is to get money to do research, they may elect not to go and do research at all. So when a donor comes to us and says, somebody say, I'd like to fund somebody in Wisconsin. We'll look down that list of pay-ifs and we'll present those projects to that potential donor. We will do anything we possibly can to meet what the donor would like to do with his or her gift.
The future of cancer research lies in the creative minds of junior researchers. The American Cancer Society Research Program is investing in that future.
That we're living in what I call a golden era of research, where we now understand at a level we never understood before what cancer is all about. So we are the incubator and the guarantors of the future generation of successful researchers.
You ready to go to school? Yeah. All right. I know that the American Cancer Society didn't know, and the person that donated the money 34 years ago or before didn't know whose life they were saving. But I'd like to shake his hand and thank him because my daughter is here because he did.